Good morrow, ladies and gents. It is I, the Crimson Crusader, the most evil anti-MGTOW YouTuber who dares to think for himself. It seems many MGTOW got triggered by my channel introduction video, where I dared to question MGTOW. So to appease my MGTOW friends who were insulting me, I added a trigger warning for these special MGTOW to appease their tendency to act like radical feminists. Today's video is especially triggering because I'm going to talk about why I personally believe MGTOW is not the best use of a man's time. I want to make it crystal clear that these are my opinions and my personal reasons for being anti-MGTOW. This video is going to be biased because it's my opinion, and if you disagree, that's okay. But please, refrain from using shaming language because it's just embarrassing to watch. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the video. For those who are new to this channel, MGTOW is a men's movement that encourages most, if not all men, to avoid romantic relationships with women, because men apparently are being severely threatened by modern women, society, and/or the state on a massive scale. MGTOW also believes that men should live a lifestyle where they should prioritize their own freedom and focus on improving themselves. Many MGTOW have different opinions, but they generally believe in the things I just talked about. Most people join this group because of a bad experience with a woman, such as going through a divorce. Being emotional and frustrated with their situation, some turn to MGTOW believing it will improve their lives, which is not necessarily the case. On the other hand, anti-MGTOW is a movement of brave social activists that consciously reject a majority of MGTOW's stupid ideas, because anti-MGTOW exposes the fallacy, toxicity, and counterproductivity that is entrenched in the movement. Many anti-MGTOW believe MGTOW could have been a great support group for single men, but instead it has become infested with many stupid ideas. Because of this, anti-MGTOW aspires to fight to end MGTOW's current existence and focus on taking a more rational approach to fighting these so-called threats that men face, even if they even do exist. If you want to learn more about anti-MGTOW arguments, I suggest watching anti-MGTOW videos such as my International Anti-MGTOW Day video or my MGTOW Arguments Challenge Accepted video. Now I'm going to talk about my personal beliefs about MGTOW and anti-MGTOW. Some people believe that anti-MGTOW, such as myself, hate single men, which is malicious propaganda perpetuated by some people in the MGTOW community. In fact, I am a man who is proud of my masculinity, and I am supportive of men who decide to live a single life as long as they are doing it for the right reasons. For example, if a man decides to be single because he wants to focus on his career or to better society, I am all for that. What I am against is movements like MGTOW that try to get all men or most men to be single by using weak evidence or logic to make over-exaggerated claims that men are being oppressed in some way that prohibits them from having a happy relationship. Naturally, this conflicts with my own beliefs. Unlike the majority of MGTOW, I believe people, both men and women, should focus on doing whatever benefits the general public instead of focusing on themselves. Without sacrifice, there is no way humanity can progress. The American revolutionaries made many sacrifices for a cause greater than themselves, and Martin Luther King Jr. sacrificed his own security to fight for equality. However, I believe people should set aside some time to work on their personal goals, but I believe that the individual must prioritize working for the greater good first. Corruption occurs when people focus too much on themselves. Politicians become corrupt because they begin to work for their own interests rather than the people's. Furthermore, I disagree with many MGTOWs who believe that people should have the freedom to do whatever they want, as long as they are not hurting anyone and as long as it does not interfere with someone else's freedom. Many of MGTOW's interpretations on various issues seem to come from libertarianism, which is something I oppose. The problem with having this kind of freedom is that it fails to take into account many moral dilemmas. If we lived in a society according to what most of these MGTOW are saying, all kinds of degeneracy would thrive, such as porn. Porn not only objectifies women, but it rewires a man's brain into fantasizing about sex with women instead of having a happy and normal interaction with them. Not only that, but porn naturally leads to social isolation because it takes time away from reality. Child porn would also be allowed too because it does not go against libertarianism. I'm not saying MGTOW support it, but if a MGTOW believes in this kind of freedom, then a man should be able to do whatever he wants as long as he's not harming anyone. And how is watching porn hurting anyone? What's worse is these MGTOW would have to endorse negative liberties, because following the logic of libertarianism, if there was a huge disparity between rich and poor people, in order to keep the poor from starving, the rich would have to give up their freedom to do what they want with their money, and give it to the poor. But in this situation, many of the poor would likely starve because forcing the rich people to sacrifice a portion of their vast wealth would violate libertarian ideals. I'm not calling for socialism or that the rich should be taxed to death or that the poor are all automatically entitled to most of the rich's money. Rather, I am saying that I believe the society should go beyond protecting liberties and look out for the welfare of the citizens. I believe the general public, not just the rich, have an obligation to help to some extent those who cannot help themselves. Furthermore, if one does believe in this kind of freedom, then they would also have to allow open borders in our society, because immigration isn't harming anyone, is it? Maybe we should allow 10-year-olds to do drugs and drink booze because they aren't harming anyone else. Driver's licenses and taxes should also go away, because people should do whatever they want with their money and cars because, hey, they earned it. As you can see, a society that adopted this kind of thinking cannot survive. Those who support this kind of freedom fail to understand how freedom to harm oneself can actually harm others. If someone does drugs, they are more likely to cause crimes. So it makes sense to make things like pot illegal to make it harder for people to get their hands on this stuff, and reduce the chances of people doing something stupid, which would reduce the crime rate. Another problem with this kind of freedom is it fails to take into account environmental concerns. If there are no regulations on carbon emissions, then we would have lots of pollution, thus decreasing our standard of living. Animals and natural beauty would also go extinct without such measures. So instead of maximizing freedom, I believe in a society that limits people's personal choices to have more security for the general public. Again, not all MGTOW are libertarians or believe in libertarianism, but from what I have observed, it seems many MGTOW believe or are influenced in some way by this philosophy. When it comes to economics, I don't believe in capitalism. In fact, I believe in democratic socialism. I mean communism, comrades, where the workers are in control. I'm just kidding. I actually believe in a mixed economy, an economy where we have some socialistic policies to help those who cannot help themselves, with some limits, of course. Also, in this system of economics, I believe in some government intervention. Without regulations, businesses can do a lot of unethical stuff. They can turn workers into wage slaves, and monopolies would destroy competition, thus slowing innovation. In some cases, prices may need to be controlled during extreme situations, such as in the event of a hurricane. Prices of gas should be controlled to prevent price gouging. Another thing I don't like is people who use their money to lobby candidates, because then the donor's interest can interfere with the interests of the people. Because of potentially unethical situations like these, I don't believe people have the right to do whatever they want with their money, which is something many MGTOW seem to believe in. First is MGTOW's so-called solution of leaving romantic relationships with women to keep men free from the so-called oppressive institutions and etc., such as the court systems and marriage. In all honesty, that's not a solution, but rather you're just avoiding the problem. If men's rights are being violated, focusing on yourself isn't going to change the system. In fact, it will make it worse, because if the people who care about this stuff are giving up, that means there will be less resistance for the people who are trying to oppress men, if that's truly happening. Assuming these problems do exist, wouldn't it be better if men became men's rights activists and tried to make reforms to the system? Furthermore, if every man became a MGTOW, society would collapse because there'd be no families, if men were to all become, or most men were all to become single. Without families, kids will not live happy and normal lives, but for some sick reason, some MGTOW actually want a collapse of society where new order will take place. Ooh, great. If anything, we're going to have more chaos and disorder if that happens. So instead of offering real solutions to real problems, most MGTOW are just being counterproductive because they're basically sapping the strength of reform groups. If you're someone who supports family values, you cannot support MGTOW, because those who prioritize family put the needs of their family above themselves, which is something that most MGTOW cannot do. Why? Because families involve marriage, and to MGTOW, marriage is seen as a threat. And remember, many MGTOW see a man's freedom as the most important thing, which naturally trumps his responsibilities. While I do support family values, that does not automatically make me a tradcon or some sort of conservative, or that I believe in fixed gender roles. In fact, I am okay with the woman being the breadwinner and the man taking care of the kids. But if the human race is to continue, we need both men and women to work together in raising kids, otherwise we'll be facing a bleak future. MGTOW really seems to be the secret anti-civilization formula, and if you don't believe me, look at MGTOW.com's definition of MGTOW and how it tries to paint the world as evil. Giving up on society instead of reforming certain corrupt institutions is like killing the whole body instead of removing the tumor. Not only is this logic awful, but we still haven't seen a lot of evidence from MGTOW that definitively proves that there is a massive bias towards men on the scale they are claiming, at least from what I've observed so far. When it comes to red pill philosophy, I don't believe it exists because there seems to be a lack of credible scientific evidence supporting it. The best evidence I've seen so far is MGTOW using their personal experiences as examples to prove things like hypergamy and etc. However, this logic is flawed, as personal experiences are not always representative of reality. For example, if I have an experience with a MGTOW who uses shaming language, does that mean all MGTOW are going to use shaming language? No, of course not. Furthermore, when it comes to analyzing human psychology, I take the biopsychosocial approach. It's the idea that biology, human cognition, and society all play a role in shaping our behavior. It's a more balanced approach that considers all factors instead of overemphasizing the importance of evolution in biology like MGTOW usually does. I don't like to give people damning sentences and say, oh, you were born this way, which means you will most likely act like this or you will always do that. The MGTOW who say women are slaves to their biology or that their biology controls their actions are admitting women have no free will then, if that's truly the case. Then why are these same people complaining about women not being held accountable when women can't even be responsible for their own actions? Somehow many men can deny their strong biological desire to reproduce by going MGTOW, but many women cannot deny their biology of hypergamy. Again, I don't think all of evolutionary psychology is wrong, but I think MGTOW and many other people are taking this thing a little bit too far. In conclusion, a MGTOW world is a world with uncertainty and moral dilemmas that society cannot afford to worry about. If you're still wondering why I believe MGTOW is toxic, fallacious, and counterproductive, I recommend watching those two videos I suggested earlier. Anyways, so what are the alternatives to MGTOW to solve this oppression if it even exists? Well, people can adopt the anti-MGTOW philosophy, which you can learn more about if you watch my Free Men speech. In that video, I provide a philosophy that offers a possible solution to finding a method of solving problems. Another option is becoming a men's rights activist and working to reform society through activism. Although I question the existence of many of these so-called threats to men, that doesn't mean I don't believe in men's rights. I just don't want to waste my time fighting for problems that don't exist. Also, I am now dropping the feminist label because too many people confuse people who want men and women to have equal rights with radical third-wave feminists who want special privileges. I always find philosophy and intellectual discussions as a great way of exercising one's critical thinking skills, because it allows us to think for ourselves and it promotes rational decision-making. Feel free to disagree with me, and remember, these are my personal views, and they don't necessarily represent the anti-MGTOW community's beliefs as a whole. Remember that there are some great MGTOW out there, and not all MGTOW hate women or are evil. Anyways, I have many more reasons for why I'm anti-MGTOW, and as I suggested before, go check out those videos if you want to learn more. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell so you get notified when I upload a new video. You can also follow me on @Crusader on Twitter, and let me know in the comments below, how much freedom should people have? Is there a better way to combat MGTOW? Do you agree or disagree with my personal beliefs? My fair ladies and honorable gents, fare thee well.